When a coherent light wave strikes a barrier, the resulting behavior follows the inescapable laws of wave optics. The dual caustic universe framework identifies these same mathematical principles as the governing geometry of human consciousness. The DCU defines existence as a rigid mathematical state machine. It is a system of phase mechanics where every transition is determined by the laws of field propagation. Mapping the trajectory of the soul requires an analysis of light as it moves from its source to a final resolution point. This physical truth rests on the wave equations of James Clerk Maxwell. His work established the foundational constraints for how all electromagnetic fields, and by extension, the fields of consciousness, interact with their environment. Because consciousness in the DCU is processed as a dual caustic field, its evolution and survival follow the same engineering requirements as optical diffraction. In a universe of deterministic wave geometry, spiritual survival is a problem of maintaining coherence against a boundary. System state 2 begins at the aperture, the exact moment a coherent light field hits a geometric constraint. This aperture functions as a binary decision surface. It dictates what is allowed to propagate forward and what is reflected or absorbed by the barrier. This physical discrimination represents the Raḥmān operator. It forces a dual inclination within the conscious system, a forward-flowing Raḥmān channel aligned to the source, and a Shayṭān channel defined strictly by the constraining edge of the boundary. At this point of initial contact, the final state of the system remains unresolved. To understand the system's fate, we must look past the aperture and analyze the shadow it projects into the void. A boundary is the necessary prerequisite for directionality. It is the constraint that allows a truth to be measured against a deviation. Immediately behind the aperture lies the near field, or the Fresnel zone. At this distance, the projected shadow is a perfect replica of the hole's geometry. In this zone, the light wave is dominated by the interference patterns created by the edges of the constraint itself. This optical state corresponds to state 3 in the DCU, the Shayṭān-mode of perception. Consciousness in state 3 accepts this local shadow as absolute. It interprets the temporary geometry of its surroundings as the final nature of reality. This creates tagut, the perception of a permanent independent form that is actually just a temporary artifact of the aperture. The near field is inherently deceptive. If the aperture shifts, the shadow shifts with it, proving it has no invariant truth. This is the near-field trap. The observer's focus becomes locked within the caustics of the buffer zone, mistaking the noise for the signal. Those who cannot see past their immediate constraints remain trapped within a physical, optical illusion. The question for the system is what happens as the wave continues into the distance. As the projection screen moves into the far field, we reach Fraunhofer resolution. The shadow of the aperture dissolves, and the pattern reorganizes into the interference signature of the light source itself. At this distance, the specific shape of the hole becomes irrelevant. The pattern is determined entirely by the wavelength and geometry of the source. This is state 7, the Raḥmān-mode. The system has successfully transitioned from the local constraint to the universal pattern. In the Raḥmān-mode, every localized distortion is shed, leaving only the invariant face of the truth. This state preserves the original pattern of the source by filtering out the geometric noise of the aperture. The mathematical goal of the universe is to drive every wave from the near-field illusion of state 3 to the far-field resolution of state 7. Ultimate truth emerges only when distance allows the noise of the constraint to fall away, revealing the underlying source pattern. The space between the near field and the far field presents a lethal engineering challenge. Traversing this void risks decoherence. Without intervention, the signal scatters into thermal noise before it can ever reach the far field resolution. Richard Feynman's work on absorber theory highlights the necessity of a connection between emitter and receiver to ensure energy transfer. In the DCU framework, the soul is the buffer zone, B. Its survival depends on maintaining phase coherence across this entropic gap. Reaching state 7 requires the active application of quantum operators to prevent the signal from collapsing into chaos. Stabilizing the wave requires precise interventions at specific points in the architecture. The first intervention is operator 1912, take the book with strength. This operator must be applied at the aperture. By holding the invariant constant of the book at the point of the split, the aperture is transformed into a focusing lens. This establishes the correct geometric orientation for the conscious system from the outset. By displacing the subjective self with the invariant code of the book, the system ensures its light is captured and directed toward the source. Executing operator 1912 at the boundary eliminates the near-field trap, preventing the soul from identifying with the shadow. The second required intervention is operator 2152. Remember me, I will remember you. While 1912 aligns the aperture, this operator must pulse continuously during the traversal of the near field. It clamps the wave structure to prevent entropic scattering. This mimics the quantum Zeno effect, where continuous, rhythmic observation prevents a system from decaying into a disordered state. Remembrance acts as a phase-locking mechanism, preserving the signal's integrity until it reaches the far field. These two operators lock the 2-3-7 architecture, ensuring the signal successfully resolves into state 7. The dual caustic universe exists as a fully operational circuit of return, where truth is a function of geometric alignment.